Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Chris Enyeart. Chris and his sons and his daughters love hunting Iowa. Chris has done a lot of things in the chemical engineering safety realm and has taken to various states. But lo and behold, he's home in Iowa now and couldn't be happier. They own 120 acres, which he's going to talk about how they're developing it and how they're helping deer grow and trying to establish a balanced herd. Having said all that, Extreme Element Outdoors was Emmitt's brainchild. Now the whole family is part of this program. You can see him on YouTube. Check him out on Facebook. All in all, it's one heck of a hunting family, and you're going to enjoy Chris's stories. Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, and we're heading out to Iowa, the land of the giants. And from social media and stuff, some big bucks are falling down all over the Midwest. But Iowa, doggone it, they just got they got a corner in the market, I guess. So we're meeting with Chris Enyeart, and Chris is the father of a bunch of kids that started Extreme Element Outdoors. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have the dad here. Emmitt was on the show a few months back, and he said, "You got to get my dad on the show. You got to get my dad on the show because he's the guy that got us all started." So let's just kick the show off with some of your hunting tradition, where you came from, and why you're still hunting today.
Yeah, so I'm certainly flattered that Emmitt made those comments. What I've always tried to do is expose my kids to the outdoors. I was certainly fortunate to grow up in a family with family tradition of hunting. Grew up in the state of Pennsylvania, and a lot of hunters in the woods. First day of Pennsylvania rifle season, but there's a great tradition. Grew up in that hunting camp environment, and really that's where it all got started. Took an interest in bow hunting and just developed a passion for whitetail deer hunting and overall outdoors. When I graduated from college, I had the opportunity to work in the state, continue to work in the state for several years, and then I moved to Texas for employment opportunities and had an opportunity to be exposed to the type of hunting they do in Texas with feeders and just a different type hunting environment than I was accustomed to for whitetail. So had some success there, enjoyed it a great deal, but my heart and my passion was eventually to get back to the Northeast or potentially the Midwest, and that opportunity came when I had the opportunity to go to Ohio, and of course when we made the move, we were challenged to. I lived in a relatively urban area, and it was difficult to not having, being from that area. It was difficult to obtain access to property and quality population density, but still managed to continue hunting and we had success there as well. In fact, Emmitt shot his first deer in the state of Ohio, and then had the opportunity to go to Iowa, and we've been here ever since. So we've, of course, many of your listeners are probably aware that the state of Iowa and the quality of the whitetail deer here, but there's still some great opportunities in Iowa for access to public hunting, and I don't know if it's one of the best kept secrets, but some may not want that to get out, but I'm firsthand knowledge that there's some great public hunting in Iowa, and there's still pockets of building relationships and being able to access some private property for hunting as well.
Yeah, I think Emmett shared a couple of those places on his show, and it was really interesting how if you spend the time, invest some time, and try to be as I call it, a good hand with the landowner, you'd be surprised what happens.
Yeah, it's come a long way. I know in a prior you and I talked in a prior conversation. I can remember when I was a young kid, you could gain access to property through, a handshake, offering to bale some hay or help out around the farm, and maybe even offering up some of your harvest. But as the hunting industry has progressed, it becomes more types of things. But I think through persistence and developing those relationships, the highest level of respect, those opportunities still exist. So,
So why did you guys start your extreme element outdoors? What was the kicker on that?
well, Emmitt, he's had an interest in hunting since he was just a youth, and I would say his high school age years, when he was older, later in his teens, um, and he started with wanting to video, self video his hunts, and it really all started with that. And he would say, Dad, why don't we look for opportunities to share this with others? And I think it's challenging, and going, your hunts takes it to a whole new level. And so he developed an interest in that, and wanted to look for opportunities to be able to share that with others. And if you quality, but nonetheless, they're very interesting. And I think you'll see, if you look at those videos, our focus is continuous improvement, enjoy what we're doing, and share that with others.
Now, when you think of Iowa, I know you guys just picked up 120 acres. One, why did you buy that land? And two, what are your plans to grow a bound turd on it?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. It's always been a dream to have a piece of the pie. Your own property for hunting, for managing. The habitat. We're very fortunate, and we've only had it about a year and a half, and really it goes into the land preparation. We were fortunate to we had to pro some equipment to get some food plots in this hunting season. We're developing a long-term plan for what the habitat should be, and that's really the enjoyment out of it. That's why we did it, and I'm finding I'm enjoying that as much as hunting itself.
Now, what type of terrain is it?
It was youth season. We took my youngest son first deer off one of the food plots we planted. So, and that's what we got that footage of that as well. So it's overall very exciting.
What type of terrain is it? All ag land or creek bottom, or what's it consist of?
Could you say again?
Yeah, what does the land consist of? What type of topography?
So we've got rolling terrain. It's 120 acres. It's 90 timber, and we've got 30 acres of field. We've got about 15 acres in food plot, and it's rolling terrain with some pretty deep ravines that break up the property. For a 120 acre parcel, in my opinion, it hunts pretty big.
What does that mean? Hunt's pretty big.
Well, it's we can have multiple tree stands, a couple to 2, 3 hunters in there at one time. I think where they're, perhaps wind is not affecting each other. It's not like I would say a flat parcel that with visibility you can see from one side to the other. With the contour of it, it breaks things up, and I think you can hunt your a section without potentially negatively impacting another hunter. So, if that makes sense.
Is that why you bought it? Because of the versatility of terrain?
Yeah, that was a piece of it. The region is to have relatively high deer density. It has a good reputation, that region of the state, and it just so happened, it 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 had everything we need. I wanted some field, some area for food plots, and the majority of it were timber or where we would create cover, and it kind of has all that to offer with the potential too. With some hard work, we can make it even better.
Now, do you have water on it?
We do have there, the ravines in some places will hold water. We also have like a small, what I would say is like a frog pond on it as well. So
Yeah, just FYI, it depends how steep your ravines are, but I know a lot of guys that put, small dams, not huge, filled up to the top dams, but they'll they'll put dams on a number of them, and it holds water just longer, and sometimes through the summer, they'll certainly dry up after a while, but with runoff and everything, it creates a lot of little pools that deer, don't have to leave the security cover, whatever, and they can go get a drink.
yeah, yeah, that's great advice. And I think the other opportunity that we were looking for was a place of our own that perhaps we could create, a sanctuary, manage, pass on lower age class deer, and then see if we could potentially benefit from, of course, that translates into antler size, but that was something else we were looking forward to as well. This year, we've got a pretty good, our trail cameras indicate we've got a pretty good inventory of deer. A lot of them very young deer. Nothing that I would say is massive that stands out. I certainly want to hunt that deer, but looking forward to the years to come and see what by passing and starting to identify and name some of these deer to see if they return the following year, if we can hold any of them. Being 120 acres, it's not always easy to hold them there, but certainly, we may have the opportunity to benefit, and I think some of our neighbors manage as well. We'll see.
That was my next question. Have you, one, met your neighbors? Two, what's their hunting, focus goals, whatever you want to call it? And have you discussed, if we manage this correctly, guys or gals, we can really grow some nice deer here. Have you had those conversations?
I have had the opportunity to meet some of the neighbors, just great people. Anytime you get rural Midwest people, good people everywhere, but just saw the earth. We have great neighbors. Some of the property is actually, it's outfitted. One of my neighbors' outfits is an outfitter, so they already recognize the benefit of managing the herd and trying to let deer get to a mature age. So some of that is already in place and recognize the need that we need to harvest does to make sure we keep the right balance.
Now, have you done anything with QDMA yet, or talked to those guys?
I haven't, Bruce, and it's that is something we're going to definitely do. This like a whirlwind. We just got the ground about. It was a little over a year ago, and we put a structure on it, so there was some little bit of construction activity, and then trying to acquire some of the equipment. So we've had so many things going on, but that is something we're definitely going to do. I'm going to seek out some advice, some third party advice on what are some of. I have some ideas, but I'd like to bounce them off some people to see what they think as well.
Yeah, my recommendation, just go to QDMA website and look up the regional guy or gal, and to say, hey, next time you're in the area, can I buy you a cup of coffee, or can we have lunch or whatever? Because in my opinion, they do as well as anybody in the industry of helping people do a couple things. One, grow a balanced deer herd. Two, build the relationships. They call them co-ops, but it's a relationship with your neighbors, and they do that really well. And it's a pretty impressive group. And the other thing is Land and Legacy. Here's a shout out for Matt Dye and Adam Keith. Land and
Mm.
Legacy can be found on the web. I have no idea what they charge. I have no idea, but they've been on my show a number of times, and they're just really great young men. And if I can help them at any time, I always throw their name out because they get it. And the proof's in the pudding. And they, even though they're young, they've got some really great success stories of what they've done and taken habitat 40 yards, 40 acres up to thousands of acres. And, you know, that's what they call the company, Land and Legacy, because the legacy of hunting is what they want to help everybody, all their clients get to. So there you go, guys.
Yeah.
So when you talk about your hunting tradition, you talk about Easton, and talk about Emmitt, and what does it feel like when Easton just shot his first buck? What does it feel like for Dad? Can you explain that?
Yeah. It's probably a good thing my wife's not listening. But I you rank those most important those days in your life that you remember forever that are most important. And at the top of everyone's list is when they got married, when their children are born. Now, I'm not going to say it's that there, but I got to tell you, when you have a passion for hunting and getting your kids out there and getting them involved, it's there. I can remember when Emmitt harvested his first year. I was there with him and Easton, and it's one of those days you'll never forget. It's just etched in stone, and you can still recall the little details of the experience. So you know. Um, there's just I don't know that there's a better feeling. It's certainly better than I've had an opportunity to shoot some respectable deer, but nothing has ever been as exciting as being with the children when they shoot theirs.
It's a special time, and that brings me up to you're doing such a great job of passing it on. Why don't you give some advice or tips or something to some of the listeners out there, single mom, dads, whomever, about helping passing on the hunting tradition?
Yeah, so some of this may be from learning the hard way, but I think what we try to do is make it fun. Um, you know, eh, make it fun for get them involved in the preparation. Uh, Make it enjoyable for them. I think one of the keys is, and for some people it may be more difficult for being able to access property, but you want to set them up for success. Um, I personally don't think it should come too easy. I like to see them have to work for it, whether it be in the preparation or whether it be time in the stand or in the blind. I can tell you that with both actually all three of mine, I've got my daughter's 16 and she harvested her first year 3 years ago, and with all three uh, kids, I got them involved in preparation, whether it be brushing in a blind or hanging the stand, or maybe even was this year with food plot preparation, but made sure that to some degree they were involved with that. Didn't overwork them, but certainly involved. And then, uh, at least in their case, all three had to put in some stand time or blind time, I would say. Easton, for example, hunted last season probably a dozen times and didn't have an opportunity. That's quite a bit for an 8-year old. But I think probably the number one thing is setting them up for success. You don't want them to not succeed, and sometimes that can be a challenge, right? You don't want them to get bored with it. But the other thing too is making the time quality. One of the things I like to do is hunt with them in a blind. I don't like to do a lot of tree stand hunting because in the blind we can still have conversation, without disrupting. We can still talk, we can whisper, and that is, high quality time. I was with my 14-year-old daughter when she harvested her first deer, and I spent a couple days, couple sits with her, several sits in the blind, and I got more information in those sits than I got, hours outside of the woods. So
Isn't that
rambled on.
interesting? No, that's
Yeah,
good. I like that. I like the last part where you had some real conversations with your daughter without distraction, and you kind of talked to some stuff that maybe you hadn't talked about in a while or never. But there you are sitting out, and all of a sudden there goes the conversation, and that's priceless.
yeah, yeah. And I also, and I think most parents are aware of this, but I also, take advantage of the technology, the iPads and the cell phones, keep them on silent. But that helps quite a bit as well. I will say it's a lot different than when I was introduced. Uh, where you went out and nearly froze, and it was all you look forward to was getting back to the camp initially to warm up because of the time of year. But yeah, I don't know if that's useful, but that's
Yeah, well said. And since we're talking about the kids, and I know your background is in safety in the chemical business, so let's talk about safety first and how you train your kids to be safe in the woods.
yeah. Well, safety is a number one priority, whether it be handling a firearm or particularly with the bow hunting, the tree stand safety. Um, you know, it's they know it's important to me. I think sometimes at an early age they don't understand because of they haven't experienced consequences or know anything that's happened to anyone they personally know. So I try to give them examples of incidents that have occurred that I'm aware of, or and the impacts to those people's lives, whether it be a loss of a loved one, or perhaps it's a disabling injury, what kind of impact it has to their life, and then the other thing is setting the example, you know, when you're out there, making sure that it's 100% tie off in a tree stand, and the firearms always pointed in the safe direction, unloaded, all of those things. It's setting the example, trying to get them, making sure they understand the consequences, but really emphasizing the how it affects people's lives. And I think those are the things that I, try to go by, because I certainly don't want them to learn it the hard way.
And nobody wants that. And, it's up to all of us listeners, whether you've been in a tree stand for decades or this is your first, you're taking somebody out the first time. And more so than ever, I shudder when I think of the wooden stands that we used to put up and 2x4s and ice. You get in there and it's dark and your hands are gripping it and it's slipping because all the rungs are iced over. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. Oh, forget safety straps. There weren't any safety harnesses, straps. You know, there wasn't. I mean,
Yeah.
just
No.
and
No. Yeah. And when I first started bow hunting, I don't know that anyone used. Of course, I was late in my teens, but it wasn't far into my early 20s that I started using a harness. It may have been ahead of the curve a little bit, but I think the first one I used I got from a place I worked, so it wasn't one produced by one of the companies that are manufacturing specifically for hunters.
so listeners, I know everybody knows this, but ground blind, you don't need a safety harness unless you're like me and you fall asleep. And you don't want to fall out of your chair. That's a joke. But if you're going in hang-ons and especially double sets with everybody who's doing so much filming, it might be a ladder stand, then you get a hang on above it for your camera set. Please, 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 just think of your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mom and dad. Just do it. Just if you can't, if you forget your harness, is might as well have left your bow or your gun at home. That's my thinking. Your thoughts, Chris?
No, I agree with you absolutely. This is what I do for a living as far as putting in place programs to try to help protect people. But it's inherent in all of us. It's easy to get complacent or look at a situation happen to me. And I would be willing to bet just about anyone that survived an incident. If you ask them, they would say, I didn't think it was going to happen to me. And it's one of those things you just can't take the risk. You may perceive it as a low probability, but it can and it will happen to you.
Yeah, because it does every year. Okay, moving forward in that. Be safe. That's our statement on that. And what's your one big thing when you're hunting? If you do one thing every single time you go in the field, what is it?
Well, okay. Well, we talked enough about safety, so I'm not going to, that's certainly at the forefront. I would say it's preparation and thought or strategy into where my stand location is, or where I'm going to hunt, or which stand I'm going to hunt. Because if from Extreme Element Outdoors, we talk about being just average hunters, right? We all work for a living. We have jobs, and I like others have limited vacation or time that I can commit in the woods. So I want to make sure that every second that I get out there, that I'm taking the time to analyze whether it be weather conditions and trail cam pics. I don't know if this is too gentle. Every second I have out there, as far as where I'm going to hunt, because of the limited time.
Thanks for that. Well, we're at the time of the show. Why don't you give some shout outs for Extreme Element Outdoors, how people can view that or check it out on YouTube or Facebook, and then anything else you want to do, then we're going to wrap the show.
I just Extreme Element Outdoors at extremeelementoutdoors.com. Check it out. I think you'll find it interesting. We've got some blogs, some videos there, and I think just want to thank you, Bruce, for the opportunity. Certainly, great opportunity. Love the podcast. Listen to them all the time. I can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate that. And sometime if I ever draw another Iowa tag, I shouldn't last, folks. It gets frustrating for us out-of-staters, but it does, because there's wonderful deer there, and even more important, and I think Chris hit upon it earlier. The hospitality, the people in rural Iowa they're off the charts. So thanks so much for spending your time, and say hello to Emmitt for me, and I look forward to catching up down the road.
All right. Thanks so much, Bruce.
Hey, folks, we're going to head out to Pennsylvania and connect with Ryan Lang. I found Ryan, or we connected on Instagram, because he just finished the Moab 240. What's the Moab 240? Well, one young man and a bunch of his friends, Cameron Hayes to be one of them, decided to run 240 miles in the Moab, Utah area. And why is this important? It's important because mental toughness is by far the greatest asset, or can destroy you. Yeah, we got to be in shape, or you got to be in shape, or Ryan's got to be in shape to run this. And if for hunting, we've all got to be in shape, some more, some less. But when it comes down to push time, it's really what's between the ears that makes a difference between success and failure. So I hope you like the show. It's a little bit different. Ryan does hunt out east. He enjoys hunting. He's a student at Drexel University, and he's just one fine man that I'm really happy to introduce you.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.